to you is composing and writing. Do you guys have a discipline for writing, or do you write at the same time every day before an album, or does the ideas maybe comes in a way, I don't know, you write today and then 1 week nothing, and then, or do you have a discipline where you say, okay, I go to the studio every day, 5 hours writing, and then?
It's not sort of regimented like that, like a 9 to 5, clock in and clock out. I think we kind of, the way we write, we all kind of live in separate areas of the UK, and so we get together at certain times, but we get ideas together ourselves and then come together and see where that takes us. It's not a kind of, sometimes you'll be very productive and sometimes you won't.
Yeah, it's kind of, it's different.
It can be very
with each record and each song,
Yeah.
Sometimes we're jamming a lot. Sometimes we have an individual has a very formed idea of how songs should be, and we work off that. But it's not. The exciting bit is we don't have a routine. If you know me, we don't have that 9 to 5 mentality, which is good, I think.
And when you finally finish a song, is there a kind of sense of triumph when you think, okay, great, or maybe a sense of emptiness? I thought, okay.
I know what you mean. I know what you mean. I think I think the sense of triumph comes when you finish writing it and we all play it. I think the sense of emptiness comes when it's recorded, because when it's recorded and mixed, then you've let it go, and that's when you kind of think, well, that's all we can do with that now. It's gone. So there's a bit of both. Yeah, the triumph comes when we're in a little rehearsal room and we all go, "This sounds great. Is that the song? Is that the order? Is that the arrangement?" But the emptiness comes then whenever it's a wrap in the studio then.
I think with a lot of the songs, right up until it's mixed, the song can be quite different. So we're always really, we're always trying to focus on to make it the best we can do.
How many influences the producer to your work? Is it very important, or is it just more than a sound engineer?
It depends. I mean, a lot recently. We do an awful lot ourselves. We've all been doing this long enough. I mean, in different bands and also with therapy, that we know the band really has to know mostly what it wants. A producer can help. I mean, a producer's really good at. For example, the last producer we had, Andy Gill, he's the guy from the Gang of Four, and he's produced Killing Joke and Michael Hutchins and the Chili Peppers. And his big thing was really he wanted to make us sound more like a 3-piece again, because he cut down on the overdubs, used the space more. But that was something that we'd been thinking about a lot anyway. So that was very complimentary. We haven't really had a producer that has come in and went, right, we're going to start again from scratch. I don't think anyone that works with therapy, they realise we're not that kind of band. We're not a band that can exploit the way we look or exploit the connections that we have. I think people that work with us realise that we're a bunch of musicians that know what we want. But again, it would be quite interesting. I sometimes think what it would be like to work with somebody like Timbaland, say, that comes in and invents a lot of beats and you almost co-write with them. That would be quite interesting. But we've never done that.
So you're pretty successful in the night, or you even played at the top of the pops, I think.
Yeah.
How did it feel at the time to have such a big success? What changed it for you personally and for the band?
The thing about when Troublegum happened, it was our 4th album, and we'd already been going for 4 years when that happened, and we'd been very, very busy. And we'd released an album on a major label the year, 2 years before. And I think it all happened so quickly. I mean, we were on Top of the Pops quite a few times in the UK. We did quite a lot of famous festivals around Europe, and we went to America a few times and things like that. But it was such hard work. I mean, whenever we delivered the album to the record company, they thought that our fan base from the previous album, which was called Nurse, which tracks on it like teeth grinding, they thought our fan base would be 9 Inch Nails fans, more industrial. And when we brought them Troublegum, they said, well, we don't know how this is going to go because it's very melodic. And it was very, very successful, but it's like anything else, when it happens quickly, everybody from management, record company realise, well, success in music doesn't come along very often. So for a full 18 months, you go, go, you go here, you go here, you go here, you go. So we never got a chance to sit down at home and go, we've done Top of the Pops 7 times, we've got gold and silver discs. We've sang with other famous people. We've played these festivals because it's literally you come off stage and the tour manager goes, "We've got to get you guys back to the hotel with a flight tomorrow to A, B, or C." And then I remember coming home after we were in Australia and realising I'd been away for a year and a half and had 2 suitcases full of dirty laundry, and I came back and I wasn't married, I was a single. I came back home to an empty house which hadn't been lived in for a long, long time. And it's only now that I look back at it when I'm talking to my wife or my son or, you know, people that we know and care about, I can say, well, this actually did happen. But at the time, it wasn't that we took it for granted. It was just that we were so caught up in the momentum of what was happening that we didn't get a chance to enjoy it as much as we thought we should.
Yeah, there wasn't really that period for reflection. So it's more like the next gig, the next thing, the next record. You know, we're always pushing forward, which we sort of do now. You know,
Yeah.
kind of, we're not personally. I think the sort of band that looks back that much. We're always thinking, what's the next record? What's the next gig? You know, push it forward and things like that.
So as you
Everybody, I mean, I think we stuck to our guns. We made Infernal Love, which is a completely dark, different album with cellos on it and everything. It wasn't the follow-up to Troublegum they expected. But I think the pressure always comes from other people. I think with us, we're not stupid people. We realised that, you know, guitar music was fashionable, Nirvana, Alice in Chains, Pearl Jam, all that. We were kind of just after grunge and just before Green Day. We kind of were in that middle ground, and we kind of knew that these things move in circles, that it doesn't last forever. And I think really most of the kind of panicking went on from record companies, to a certain extent management, agents, people like that. But I mean, ironically, I can actually say now that, you know, we've been doing it 20 years this year. 2010 has been 20 years of therapy together. And with the lineup that we have and the way that we get on as people and friends and musicians especially, I enjoy it a lot more now than I did then, because the pressure, people get people take it too seriously. You should take your art very seriously, you should take writing songs and playing live very seriously. But people take the status of being famous too seriously. Does that make any sense? It's like, you know, this record went into the charts at number 7. My God, the next one only went to number 14. You know, it's like it's that fucks people up, and I hate saying that, and I've seen it in quite a few friends as well, you know, that I knew from the 90s that were in bands as well. So it's whenever you realise that, you know, it doesn't, at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. It seems to matter to a lot of people at the time, and they get really, really upset. But when you take a step back from it, you know, the luxury of wisdom, you can sort of see that it didn't. Who cares? You know what I mean?
Cool. So another topic more. Can you remember
The therapy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was the art college.
The art college in Belfast.
Yeah.
We opened for a band called Decadence Within, which Michael was a big fan of, and I liked as well. We liked them later on. And we were first on, and it was it Warzone?
Warzone.
Warzone used to be an anarchist collective in Belfast, run by like Pete C. Burns and Leanne Martin and all these kind of people. And they were really, really great at looking after the punk community and the sort of hardcore community in Belfast. And we sent them a demo tape, and they gave us this chance to open for Decadence Within. And I actually remember what I was wearing as well, because I was really contrite. I was wearing flared trousers, and I had a big, big beard, and this psychedelic top, and I had a 335 Epiphone guitar. And Michael had a Voivod shirt on, I think.
Voivod shirt, yeah.
And Fife was wearing like a No Means No t-shirt. And we played like, before we did the gig, we were a bit nervous, so we watched Makes No Sense by Husker Du, a video of them live at Camden Palace in London. And they didn't stop for songs. They finished one song, and the drummer, Grant, and I went straight to the next. And we were kind of nervous about talking to the audience and what do we say. And the music that we played was it wasn't straightforward hardcore. It was, you know, there's psychedelic bits in it, there was dance bits in it. So we watched this video by Husker Du in my mum's house before we left for the gig, and we said, right, what we'll do is we'll do this. We've only got 8 songs, and we'll play them and not talk to the audience. And that's what we did. We went on, like, basically made a lot of noise out of the amplifiers, click, 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 and then 35 minutes later, we walked off stage. And it was fantastic. We were all like, you know, we were so nervous beforehand, and on the way back home in the car, we were like, woo, you were great, no, you were great, you were great.
Cool. Have you ever took part in the band contest? Or?
No. I hate all that. I hate the fact that music can be turned into competitions. And you know what, I also hate anything like, I mean, I'm not even just talking about the X Factor and all that. The fact that there's pop charts and all, at some point, right, and I've been thinking about this a lot recently. Whenever I grew up at school, the way I grew up, there was like a lot of kids that were the cool kids that played athletics, whose dads and mums had lots of money, and they were rich. I went to a grammar school, right, and kids had lots of money. There were doctors and lawyers' sons there. They were rich, they were very privileged, or, you know, they were good at sports. They weren't very bright, but they were good at sports, and they were athletic and they were handsome. And then you get a bunch of people like me that like punk rock and like kind of indie music, and some people like heavy metal. And we lived in the housing estate, and we were seen as kind of the scum. But that's what brought us together. So all the people I knew when I grew up that liked Napalm Death, that liked Husker Du, that liked the Smiths, that liked Joy Division, were all the same. And then all of a sudden, you realise you start making music, and you realise, okay, well, you didn't want to be part of the music, you didn't want to be part of this. Then you realise you get into indie music, and you get to go to magazines and talk to other people, and you realise it's exactly the same as school. There's a hierarchy, there's a boss, there's somebody there telling you you're not cool. You know, you're meant to be among people that get away from all that shit, leave all the jokes at school, and next thing you know, there's indie charts, there's alternative music charts, there's top 10 independent chart magazines of the year, there's people on the cover, there's who's calling. So it doesn't actually change. So you don't actually escape from anything by putting it in the competitions. And I've always thought, you know, there's no difference between if a guy's putting his heart into it and he's a busker, a 50 or 60-year-old busker on the street, like someone like Moondog or C6 Steve, or somebody putting their heart and soul into their art, it's just as valid as Rod Stewart, or it's just as valid as anybody else doing that thing. And I think that's something that people sort of forget about. You know, it's Tom York from Radiohead said it, once you kind of get one foot in the ladder, no matter how strong your credentials, it kind of has you by the balls. Because then you've sort of dipped your toe in the water that I'm on a major label and the record has to get into the charts, and then the other hand you're going, well, do I really care if this magazine likes me as much as that?
Yeah.
See, it's like anything which pits, as it would say in Planet Apes, ape shall not kill ape. Anything which pits outsider against outsider is wrong in my idea, you know what I mean? You know, it takes away the whole kind of us and them mentality which drove me on in particular in the first place.
No, it should be like an us and us mentality, you know. There's enough bad things going on in the world, you know, culturally, politically and socially, you know, without bands going, he's a cock, she's a cock, you know. Why would you do that? It's ridiculous.
Questions for you? Maybe short answers, if possible, right into the camera.
Yeah.
The first question is, you play, you're the biggest selling act in the whole world. You got a stadium tour, and you can choose your own support band. Doesn't matter how big, doesn't matter the genre, doesn't matter even if they're dead or alive. Who would you choose?
Well, I think we'd have to choose 3 bands if that's all right, because 3 pieces.
Yeah, we can choose a small festival.
Okay. I would go with probably at the minute what I'm listening to quite a lot is a guy called Burial. He's a dubstep. Well, he's not really dubstep. He's an electronic musician from Southeast London, and I would probably have him. I mean, he doesn't do live gigs. That's the only thing. If not, a DJ called Code 9, who does really, really interesting stuff. I would have him on the bill.
Drums Justice.
Yeah, the Jewish. I don't know, someone a bit, someone like James Brown or something like that, just to fuck things up a bit. I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
What was the first album or CD or tape you ever bought?
Album I ever bought myself was the Buzzcocks Love Bites, and I was 13, I think. Yeah, I was 13, and I had a paper round, delivered papers to get the money. And I'd owned albums before, but you know, my parents had bought them as Christmas or birthday presents. But the first album I ever went into a shop to buy with my own money was the Buzzcocks album. It's not. I mean, I did have really uncool records before that I liked, but the first one that I went into a shop and said I'd like to buy this album, please, was the Buzzcocks Love Bites.
My first one was the. I'm trying to think what it's bloody called. First album by Magnus. One step beyond. One step beyond. Okay, one step beyond. Yeah.
So what was?
Do you remember?
Well, I think there's a few Shakin' Stevens 7 inches.
Green door, good lad.
Green door. I remember buying No Sleep Till Hammersmith by Motorhead. I was really excited because it looked cool, it looked brilliant. And ironically at the time I thought, oh, this is awful. I remember selling it to a friend, which I then bought the album back off him about a year and a half later when it started getting my head around Motorhead, you know. That would be it.
So your name is. Have you ever thought or heard another band's name where you thought, oh, this is a great name? Sadly, we don't have this name.
I hear good band names all the time.
No, there are tons. That's great.
Yeah.
I always thought Cop Shoot Cop was just
a great name, yeah.
the best name ever.
Dead Kennedys. That's a
Kennedys,
great
Oh
name.
yeah.
Good. So if you had to put your, what genre would that be?
What genre would it be? I hate doing this. You know what? I would just say rock music. It's not hard rock. It's not hardcore. It's just rock music. We play with a setup of guitar, bass, and drums and vocals, and occasionally there's bits of samples, a little bits of electronics, and I just say it's rock music. It makes it easy. You know.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
That's
Cheers.
great. Thank you.
What are in hers drawers?
It's very hot.